Hidden treasures are around us everywhere. They could be right under your feet right now, or walled up in your home. They might be in the foundations of every building you step inside or submerged in the water. Treasure hunting is what archaeology is all about. But you don't have to be an archaeologist to make an incredible discovery. We'll prove that with this video of amazing and unexpected finds. We're starting off with a discovery that comes from the Black Loch of Merton in Scotland, an archaeological site that has provided many great wonders in recent years. If we're totally honest, we still don't know for sure what this is. It dates back to the Iron Age, approximately 2,100 years ago. And although it's clearly been fashioned to serve a specific purpose, we're not quite sure what that purpose was. It's made of wood, and based on its design, it appears to have been turned on a spindle. Usually, wooden objects like this would disintegrate after so many years in the ground, but the waterlogged bogs of the loch have kept it intact. The holes at either end of the wooden pole don't go all the way through the wood, so this might have been part of something larger. Maybe it's an Iron Age chair leg or a ratchet. Experts have even considered the possibility that it might be a musical instrument. Until we find something else that looks like it, it's going to be impossible to say for sure. During 2018, work on the expansion of the subway in Rome, Italy, was brought to a sudden halt after the discovery of an enormous luxury ancient Roman domus deep below the ground. Archaeologists are still excavating the site, but they believe they've found the grand living quarters of a respected commander of the Roman army, 40 feet below the ground, and seemingly buried on purpose. The most impressive of the features found there so far are these beautiful marble floors, which are in near perfect state. The same can't be said of the frescoed walls and mosaics at the property, but there's still enough of them left for us to conclude that this was a mansion with 14 rooms. It's situated close to the site of an ancient Roman barracks, so this commander's troops would have been able to see the life of luxury that their superior led. The grandiosity of this 2nd century dwelling has led some Roman experts to believe that this was no ordinary commander. Instead, he might have been a senior member of the special militias, who could be compared to the Secret Service operatives of today. Construction workers are accustomed to finding relics of archaeological significance as they go about their work, and that's how the site of this ancient tomb came to light in the Hebei province of northern China in 2017. The discovery was made during the laying of a new road through Chuigutan village. It wasn't in great condition when it was found thanks to a partially collapsed chamber that had flooded it, but once that drained away, the workers found a bronze mirror, a collection of copper coins, an ornate bronze spoon, and the remains of 5 people who could be traced back to the Eastern Han Dynasty of the 1st century. One of the most baffling objects to come out of the ground is a tall object that looks a little like a bird bath. So far, it's proved impossible to identify the family inside the tomb, but further study of the area might yet provide fresh insight into the social conditions of the area at the time, as well as an opportunity to learn more about ancient Chinese burial traditions. The Roman Empire spread far and wide across Europe, and occupied almost all of the British Isles at one point in the distant past. Roman discoveries are made frequently in the UK, but in June 2020, an amateur archaeologist with a metal detector made one of the most remarkable Roman discoveries in Welsh history. It's a 1-foot-long lead ingot covered in Latin inscriptions, and through those inscriptions, historians have been able to date the object. It comes from the year 43, during a time when Roman Emperor Claudius was busy pillaging Wales for its wealth of natural resources like lead and silver. Lead ingots like this usually mark the location of ancient Roman mines, but this is the oldest ever found in the country. The date places it before the time of the Boudica Uprising, which almost resulted in British independence before Emperor Nero and Marcus Trebellius Maximus quashed the rebellion in the year 61. Archaeologists are now hoping to locate the ancient Roman mine that's presumably nearby, although it's possible that it was destroyed due to later mining activity in the area. We're all familiar with the concept of planting a time capsule for future generations to find. You might even have planted one yourself. It seems that some of our ancestors had similar ideas, because a 126-year-old time capsule was unearthed by construction workers in the Scottish Highlands town of Kingussie in 2015. The shoebox-sized capsule appears to have been buried deliberately, with a newspaper from September 1894 inside to confirm the date. There was also a bottle of whiskey and a paper scroll. As the whiskey bottle has remained sealed, it's theoretically still okay to drink it, although nobody has tried to do so yet. The capsule was discovered below an old bridge, which was in the middle of being dug out and replaced when the capsule appeared. They can't have been buried at the time the older bridge was constructed, as it's older than that, but at the time of the burial, it would have been used by horses as opposed to cars. It's a fascinating glimpse into the distant past. Scotland is apparently rife with old time capsules because here's another one that turned up at the Royal College of Surgeons in Edinburgh in late 2014. Whoever hid this capsule away wasn't considerate enough to leave whiskey inside it for whoever found it in the future, but they did leave some snuff. They'd have had no way of knowing that snuff would go out of fashion in the 105 years it took to discover it. The snuff tin contained 2 different newspapers, both of which confirmed the date of the tin's internment as March 19, 1909. Based on the fact that it was found in the building's museum section and discovered during refurbishments, it's a safe bet to say that it was stashed away during the time of the museum's previous renovation, which began in 1908. Aside from the snuff and the newspapers, there were also socialist publications and schematics for the building, along with a trade magazine for carpenters. It appears that being a builder also involved being in a left-wing union, even all those years ago. When you were a small child, you might have written letters to Santa every Christmas to tell him what you wanted as a gift that year. Some families went as far as posting their letters to the North Pole, but it was equally common to send them up the chimney. In either case, they were rarely ever seen again. But in 2015, a letter from Christmas 1943 was found in the attic of a house in Reading, England. The handwriting gave away the fact that it was written by a very young boy, and one with very humble expectations. He wanted little more than a new pair of slippers, a box of chalk, and some toy soldiers. It was signed by someone called David. Fortunately, the neighbors of the family who found the letter had lived there for generations, and they remembered who David's family were. It turned out that David was still alive. He was stunned to be reunited with his Christmas wish list after more than 60 years. But unfortunately, he can't remember whether he got everything he asked for that year or not. In 1849, a team of railroad workers in Charlotte, Vermont, USA, made a discovery that baffled the scientists and experts of the time. It was a skeleton, and as they worked to uncover it and identify it, they realized that it was a skeleton that has no business being at this location. The bones were those of a beluga whale, and yet Charlotte is more than 250 miles from the nearest body of water. How could it possibly have arrived at this location? Some of the city's religious leaders theorized that it might be a relic of the time of Noah's biblical flood. But scientists had another idea. To them, the presence of this whale was confirmation of a theory that in the distant past, much of the New England area had been covered by a glacier. In more recent years, testing has been carried out on the sediments around the area the whale was found in and provided an age for the giant sea mammal of around 11,500 years. Further investigation of the area has revealed the presence of ancient beach lines and fossils from creatures usually found in the North Atlantic. It seems that all of Vermont was once below the water. If there's one thing that you don't want to find when you're digging into the ground, regardless of whether you're an archaeologist or a construction worker, it's an unexploded Second World War bomb. Many years might have passed since the end of that conflict, but there are still undiscovered bombs out there, and in theory, they might still be dangerous. This was the nightmare that construction workers in Belgrade, Serbia stumbled across in December 2013. This massive bomb, which was packed with over 1,300 pounds of explosives, was large enough to have destroyed the entire neighborhood of Dorsal if it had gone off. The device is of the kind that was dropped by Nazi Heinkel He 111 bombers during the war and is most likely a leftover of a massive bombing raid that was carried out in April 1941 as a precursor to the German occupation of the area. Finding the bomb was a nerve-shredding experience for the workers, but military experts were able to safely remove it from the area and take it to a safe location, where they destroyed it under secure conditions. When you hear the word mummification, you probably think of ancient Egypt. But Egypt wasn't the only ancient civilization to mummify the dead as part of burial rituals. The practice also happened in ancient China, and in 2011 an astonishingly well-preserved mummy was discovered by road workers in Taizhou. Based on the evidence, this woman has been lying in a wooden tomb in the ground for a little over 700 years. But she survived the passing of that time so well that even her eyebrows are still visible on her face. Aside from the excellent condition of her body, her clothing was also well preserved enough to identify her as a high-ranking official of the Ming Dynasty. The coffin that contained the mummy was filled with a strange brown liquid, which researchers don't know whether was a product of accident or design. Either way, it's likely that the liquid is the reason the body hasn't deteriorated as badly as one would usually expect in these circumstances. The coffin also contained fine jewelry and ancient scrolls, although sadly the manuscripts had degraded to the point of being illegible. You might be familiar with the theory of the African diaspora, which is the idea that all human life began in Africa and made its way out across the world from there. It's believed by many scientists and experts, but a discovery made in Israel in January 2018 might challenge that concept. It's a small fragment of what's believed to be a Homo sapien jawbone, complete with teeth, and if it's confirmed as being what it appears to be, it will prove that Homo sapiens were in Israel almost 100,000 years before the time it's thought that they left Africa. Staggeringly, this jawbone is around 190,000 years old, and it challenges everything we think we know about human migration, and possibly even human evolution. The bone comes from the Mislia Cave, which is part of Israel's Mount Carmel range of mountains. The area has long been known to contain the remains of prehistoric human settlements, but nothing quite so ancient as this has ever turned up there before. Even if it isn't human, it might belong to a previously unknown species that exchanged genes with ancient hominins or Neanderthals in the area. In other words, it's hugely significant. It's no secret that the great painter Vincent van Gogh was largely unappreciated during his lifetime, but by the 1960s, everyone who traded art ought to have known who he was and what his paintings were worth. Apparently, someone didn't, because this Van Gogh original, known as Peasant Woman in Front of a Farmhouse, was sold to an Italian immigrant living in London in the 1960s for £45. Allowing for inflation, that would be about $1,000 in modern terms. And far too low for a Van Gogh, as the signature on the painting said Vincent rather than the artist's full name. The new owner never suspected its provenance, and so it remained in the same family for the next 60 years without anyone giving it a second thought. It wasn't until late 2019 that the granddaughter of the original owner thought to get it looked at by an expert, and the truth finally became known. They wasted no time in passing it on to an auction house who sold it for $15 million. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon!